Hey there, it's Chris from Novation, and here we are at Superbooth in our wonderful Novation stand, our Novation booth, and we've got some nice new goodies here for our circuit users. So the first thing is we'll have a look at the circuit, and this is now going to have a new firmware update. We've already had 6 firmware updates in its short lifetime, and this is going to come to the 7th. This is going to be available in a few weeks' time. We're just doing some final tweaking on the firmware to get it into shape, but we've got some really nice features added. So, for example, the first thing that I want to show is the Legato switch. Previously on the circuit, you could create a little sequence, but if you wanted a long sustained note, you had the ability to give the note 16 steps. That's basically the length of a pattern. So effectively you had the ability to have the longest note you could have would be 16 steps long. But now on our gate page, we've added a new little switch. So if you create a little part, press the shift button, and we have this little orange switch here on the right hand side, and this gives you what we call a legato, and basically gives you a little tie forward for you to be able to tie on to the next note. So I'll turn it off so you can hear what this would sound like without. And this is working across 2 patterns. And if we, let's go to the synth page. Maybe a difficult sound to hear, but you can hear just a little start of the note there. Now if I turn on the legato switch on the gate page, now we just have a single long line of sound. So this is basically giving us the ability to have longer notes in our circuit, which is something that's really nice. This is really great for drone sounds as well. So for example, if I go to my side chain switch here, we'll get a nice little bit of movement in the sound. I'll turn down the kick drum, and we just have that nice little sort of shimmering sort of sustained sound over the top. So that's the first thing. We've got a legato switch to give us longer notes. And now let's move to synth 2. On synth 2, we'll mute off synth 1, bring up synth 2, sorry, we'll do all that correctly. There we go. And I'm just going to quickly take those notes off. Okay, so here is the kick drum. Okay, this is just a straightforward 4 to the floor, and the reason for this is I want to show you on synth 2 we now have Microsteps for the synthesizers. Previously we've had them for the drums, and that allows us to add up to 6 different steps, if you like, Microsteps, under each of the 16 sequencer steps. On the synthesizer it's a little bit different. We allow you to basically position where that note will start. So if I unmute the second synth part and we listen to it, okay, kind of straight, very kind of straight, rigid sort of sound. But if I go to my synth 2 page, hit the gate page, and now choose the notes, I'm now given 6 positions under each of these little steps to place the sound. So now I've just moved 3 of these around, and again we've got the kick drum there as a little reference, but we should start to feel a little bit of movement now in the sound. Okay, so that's a little bit out of time. But of course, that's the whole point. We can add a bit of extra kind of movement, and they give you a little bit more detail in terms of where those notes can be triggered from. So those are the 2 features that we've got on the gate page. For the synthesizers, we've got our legato switch to give us long, extended notes, and also the micro-step position, which allows us to place wherever we like on the actual sequencer step. And the final update feature that we have on the Circuit 1.7 is now the ability to chain your patterns together, but in different sequences. We call it pattern chain sequence. Now, I'm going to start from a fresh little sequence here. In fact, no, let's go for this one. I've not demoed with this one yet, so it could be interesting to see what happens. But basically now, if I just press a switch, we just have our usual pattern behavior. Okay, so this is just a single pattern that's repeating, and normally I would be able to say, okay, I want this pattern to play, or I want this pattern to play. There's nothing on that one, but... So we have all these different patterns, and I can play them either individually or chain them together, but they will follow a particular order. They're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4. Now with the pattern chain sequencing, what we can actually do is hold the shift button down on the patterns page, and now choose which pattern we want to play and when we want it to play. And I have 32, let's say, available slots to load in a pattern. I can even load in pattern chains. So for example, if I want to maybe add 5 different patterns, there we go. We've added them here, and basically that's going to play this little block of patterns as well. I can continue and add extra individual patterns on top as well. And what this means now is that when I hit play, you can see now the flashing LEDs under each of these little pots, and you can see them flashing around on here as well. And you can see now that they're choosing different patterns whenever I choose. So effectively, by being able to sequence these patterns into different positions, that's giving us like a 32 bar arrangement that we can play with. Well, I say 32 bar, actually it can be a lot more, because we could effectively chain these patterns together. Well, let's say if we're going individual patterns, it's 32 times, but if we go for pattern chains, we could go for up to 16 different pattern chains. So if we go for, I don't know, let's say, not that you probably would do this, but if you have your 8 patterns chained together, you could chain those together 16 times, which gives you, by my reckoning, about 128 bars worth of control over the patterns now. So that's quite a huge update really for Circuit. It's adding the Legato switch to give us extended notes, the Microsteps to give us a bit more detail in terms of where we position the synthesizer notes, and also the pattern chain sequence, which allows us to really go deep in with the circuit and create nice arrangements. So those are the features that we've been developing on 1.7 for the hardware, and then above the circuit here you'll see on my computer we have a screen showing some synthesizer parameters, and this is our new circuit editor. So this is included in our components software. Components is the management software that allows you to save your sessions, save your patches, upload samples to the circuit and all that sort of thing. But in addition to that now, we have a full synth editor for both synthesizers. And on here we can access, for example, our oscillators. So for example, here we've got a nice sawtooth there. Maybe if I go to, let's say, a pulse width waveform here, I can use the index here, and you can see on the nice graphic interface a little representation of what's happening to that waveform. And again, we can do this with kind of complex waves as well and see how they interpolate together. So here we've got a wavetable waveform, and now as I move across, you'll see that you actually get a physical representation on the screen of that waveform. So it's nice and easy to kind of see what you're doing with the synthesizer, as well as get hands on all of the parameters, all of the controls inside this, this powerful little beast. Here, if I click on here, we go to our filter page, and now you can see I've got control over my filter and also a nice graphic representation of the filter as well. I have my envelopes. Once again, I can use these nodes to move things up and down, left and right to get the extended release times, all of this sort of thing. So you've got full control over all these parameters. When I'm happy with my sound, I can just simply hit Store to Circuit and then place it in one of the circuit patches available to me in the window here. So with the combination of the 1.7 firmware updates and the components update with the circuit synthesizer editor, it's quite a good time for the circuit at the moment. So those are the features that we're talking about here at Superbooth on the circuit. And then next to the circuit, we have our fantastic little circuit mono station. Now the mono station is a wonderful analog synthesizer. In fact, it's very similar sort of topology to the Base Station 2 synthesizer, but instead of having keys on the bottom to play the instrument, we actually have the same sequencer engine as we have on the circuit, and this makes it a very powerful system. But one thing that we weren't able to do was really to be able to put different patches onto different steps in our sequencer. And now with the new patch flip feature, we're able to easily do that. So if I go to my patches page, just turn it up, of course. I have some drum sounds here on individual patches that have been saved on the mono station. So if I hit record, now if I play back, you'll see I've got those different sounds being recorded. Now that's kind of okay, but what else I can do is use these as little placeholders to build up a bit of a drum pattern with that. So if I use the shift and duplicate feature, I can put this snare here, let's put this kick drum here, 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 and probably here. Quite like that snare sound, so we'll pop that there instead. There's a hi-hat, duplicate that there. We'll clear these now, like this, and so. So now we're using all of the different patches, and you can see them jumping around here in the patch menu. And this is really opening up the synthesizer to allow us to do some very complex and interesting things by using all the different presets that we have there. So the patch flip is one of the first things that we've got, and also an important thing to mention is a brand new sequencer that's been added to the Circuit Mono Station, and that's in the mod sequencer page. Previously, we had abilities to use the mod sequence as a little independent sequence that we could send out through the auxiliary CV output here on the back, because we have our CV gate and auxiliary CV controls on the mono station. So the mod sequencer could easily be sent out of the auxiliary CV output. But what we didn't have on the mod sequencer page was actually a fully configured note and gate sequencer. So that's now been added to the Circuit Mono Station. What this means is that we now have the ability to basically send out CV and gate control messages via the oscillator 1 sequencer, the oscillator 2 sequencer, or if you choose the modulation sequence as well. And in order to do that, I simply press the Shift and Sessions button, and I now get 3 separate switches here that allow me to switch between them. So I can get my drum beat playing on this one, and if I bring up my no coast here, let's see, if I just take my CV connection, and that's the auxiliary CV, I believe. Let's go for this one. I'm going to put this into 1 volts per octave, and this is my gate, I believe. So we'll plug this now into the gate connection here. Okay, and now. So this is currently coming through from the. This is actually coming through from the oscillator 1 sequence, and this is actually playing the same notes that we have there on the oscillators. However, if I go to the mod sequence, I'll play some steps here. So I have now an independent sequence. Let me switch my CV and gate to that. Now we should notice a nice change. Maybe it's a little on the high side. So we've got the drum beat playing, and we've actually got an independent synthesizer line as well. So by using these 2 features, we can really open up the possibilities of using the Circuit Mono Station either on its own with the patch flipped as a nice kind of crazy analog drum machine or crazy analog bass machine or whatever you want it to be. And also with the mod sequencer, you can also integrate this heavily into your modulation modular setup, allowing you to have independent sequences running while the Circuit Mono Station is running as well. So those are some of the nice features that we've got on the Circuit Mono Station. So like the Circuit software, the Circuit Mono Station software is a couple of weeks away from being released to the public, and we're just doing a few tweaks in the background, and it should be out there very soon. So that's what we have here at Superbooth 2018. So thank you very much indeed for watching.